like to welcome you all to this virtual SAFETY4SEA Forum, and I would like to thank our panelists for joining us in this event, and I would like to thank all our sponsors. COVID has changed our lives and have changed the landscape of the industry for the last months, and we are here to discuss today what is going on and what we are about to see in the forthcoming months. In this panel, we will have a discussion on issues regarding sustainability in shipping. And we have Sanit Kapoor of Fleet Management, Director of Fleet in Cyprus. We have Elvi Petraki of Wista Hellas. We have Kuba Zimanski of Intermanager. We have George Sabliris of Sabliris Savlas. And we have Theo Xenakoutis of International Registries, the managers of the Marshall Island Registry, join us in this discussion. We also have Andreas Hadjipetru of Columbia Ship Management, who is having some sort of technical difficulty, and we're not sure if he will be able to join us before we conclude this panel. I would like to start right away, giving our panelists the opportunity to raise their concerns and have their introductory statement. I would like to start right away with Elvi Petraki. Elvi, we would like to start with you and give us your views on what is going on. Elvi.
Good morning to all. Thank you for having us in this panel this morning to discuss what is happening. As we all know, we live into unprecedented times, and due to COVID, it had already been difficult years for shipping because of the various economic difficulties we have been facing the last years, and COVID was a new thing to deal with. And of course, in the future, we have to face the decarbonization plan of the IMO, and we all need to be on the same line on this and try to plan for sustainable shipping and for an inclusive and sustainable shipping, I would say, in the future. So COVID is just a small stop in our way ahead, but I think we can make some good conclusions out of this situation, and we have seen that we have managed to survive and to continue our job, actually. Thank you.
Thank you, Elvi. Let's move on. Sanil. Sanil, can you?
Good morning, everyone. As my colleague just said, we are going through a very tough time. And whenever we read or see, a lot of people comment that we are sitting on a ticking time bomb. But as I see, most of the people, especially even IMO or ITF or various authorities, they do not know what's the ground reality, how things are becoming so from bad to worse. Still, there is no conscience between the various stakeholders to how to resolve this issue. The ships are still running, and I'm sure all the ship owners and the big managers, they must tell you that how difficult it is to operate the ship, and especially to find and relieve the crew and find the right qualified crew to man the ships. But just to keep the systems going on, shipping is very flexible. People are very flexible. They come with a lot of ideas, and that's how the shipping industry is doing business as of now. It has not come to a grinding halt. If it was any other industry, I'm sure they would have put their spanners down and would have stopped the industry completely. But shipping, we should thank all the people who are making it operational. ships are still running, cargoes are moving, containers are moving. So at least that's the good part of it. But how we can continue for another 6 months or to an year, it will be a great challenge. So we can discuss more during this panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Samir. George.
Me? Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank you for inviting me to participate on this panel, this session, for that matter. I like hearing. It was very interesting to hear the views expressed earlier with Elpi and Sunny, but I would tend to disagree. Without wanting to sound controversial, I'd just like to recap as follows. First of all, Elpi referred to it as a small stop. I don't particularly think this is going to be anywhere near a small stop. And if you want to maybe quote the words of Sir Winston Churchill, we don't know whether it's the end of the beginning or the beginning of the end, but it seems like the end of the beginning. I take the view, without being pessimistic, I just want to be realistic, that we really have to get our act together and prepare to the best of our ability. I mean, human beings are, by nature, historically people who survive and will survive this crisis as well. But I think we are looking, if we extrapolate, in something which is somewhere between 1.5 and 2 years minimum. And I mention this because Sunil referred this as being a small stop, 6 months rather. I don't think 6 months is being realistic, because even though we hear a lot of views about the vaccination coming out, I don't particularly think that anybody who has to, wants to face reality will actually even contemplate taking the vaccination before it's probably tested and tried, which may take a certain period of time. With regard to the infrastructure or the participation or the involvement of IMO and the other international bodies, personally, I'm disappointed, without wanting to sound controversial, because I don't think shipping has really been taken as serious as it should have been taken. Mitropoulos, God bless him, during his time when he was a tenure as being the Secretary General of the IMO, had mentioned the famous statement. I don't know whether actually it was his statement or a joint quote from Captain Panagiotis Tsakos. We mentioned that without shipping, half the world would die from starvation, and the half the world would die from freezing to death. So basically, shipping is really an activity or a component which society in general and the organizations in particular should put it as a number one priority, because the aspects which involve ourselves, or the operational features which in fact are involved in shipping, do really need much more input and much more participation and much more understanding, for that matter. And without wanting to sound too romantic, it needs a passionate approach from most people involved, especially the infrastructure or the organizations and the governments, for that matter, because I think we're going from bad to worse in terms of the paramount feature of the safety of ships, because of the crew and the fatigue which they are involved with, and the long time which they have to be involved in being occupied on ships without the ability of have their own mobility or be able to get home, or in this, some of them I hear stories about being over a year and a half. And I think even though historically 50, 70 years ago, people would go to sea and would last maybe be at sea for about 1 or 2 years, or 3 years for that matter, on a ship, it's a bit different when you're doing something out of choice as against doing something out of necessity. And what we have here, ladies and gentlemen, is, I think, is a form of a reverse form of an imprisonment. I mean, we're suffering this in our own everyday lives, as you all know. We've had the same experience. But you imagine the situation of a seaman on a ship who's away from his family, who's going through months of fatigue and exhaustion and tiredness, and the insecurity which he's facing, because we all know that when you're going through a phase of insecurity, or you're feeling worried about something, or even afraid about something, it makes hell of a difference when you confront this fear with your own family or your own people around you or your own fellow countrymen. And it's a bit different when you're on a ship 5,000 miles away from home. So as a recap, I mean, I think we have to take this much more positively. I'd like to see a much more dynamic approach from the IMO and from the other bodies involved, because I think basically that irrespective of the fact that we may have some good news and maybe things maybe not as bad as we're working out to be, I think from our point of view, our perspective, we have to look at the worst side of it. We have to prepare for the worst, which means we have a lot more work to do. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Theo?
First of all, thanks, Apostolos and SAFETY4SEA for inviting me on this panel and with these distinguished participants. I think Alpi, Sanil, and Mr. Chapliris covered most of your questions, so I don't want to repeat myself. I think we live on very difficult times, challenging times for everybody in the industry, ship owners, class societies, P&I clubs, flag states, everybody is involved heavily on this, and it's quite difficult for all of us to cope with these new lives that we have. Either this is a business or a personal life. The only message I want to give in the beginning as an introductory note, and of course we're going to cover it later, is that I don't want to be optimistic or pessimistic, because this is not my job. I'm just trying to be realistic. And I think the reality is that we have to move on in our industry with or without COVID. Any kind of obstacle that we're going to have from now on, we have to learn how to deal with it. And one great lesson that this virus gave us is that the industry and people are ready to adjust, and they can adopt any change. And like all of us, we're doing a conference today on a virtual platform. I mean, last year we wouldn't even think about doing something like that. So that shows that people are ready to adjust. Of course, it is very difficult, and I agree with Mr. Chapliris that it's going to be difficult for some time. It's not going to be short, but we have to learn to deal with it, and we have to move on with this, because shipping this is what we know, and this is what we are doing well, and we have to continue doing this.
Thank you, Theo. Kuba, if you want to start your presentation, you have to double click, and you can have a presentation.
Okay, I'll start with it indeed. Yes, I'm double clicking on it. I gather my thoughts in slides, and I wanted to show you that and go through them. So Winter Manager is the Association for Ship Managers and Crew Managers. That's very interesting, because at the moment the world is actually, shipping world decided that owners don't want to deal with crews anymore and employ crew managers. 90% of seafarers are managed by crew managers, one way or the other, and only 10%, and mostly they are top 2, are under employment of owners. I'm trying to move my slide. Okay, here we go. And I moved too fast. I'll try to come back. Here we go. As an intermanager, we thought that it would be a very good idea to actually know what we are talking about, because otherwise journalists are saying then we have abandoned our seafarers, then they are stranded, nobody looks after them. So we ask our members to actually check what's going on, how many crew members have we relieved or not, and we created Maritime Champions Club in order to draw these 2 graphs. The blue one shows how many crew members we, intermanager members alone, moved around the world. And as you can see, we are now close to 100. Actually, we crossed 100,000 seafarers from March. And if you think that intermanager only manages 30%, 35% of the fleets, then if you multiply that by 3, then you are getting into pretty good numbers, I would say. That is extremely important, because it's not all bleak and black and it's not happening. As my predecessors, my speakers before mentioned, we are adjusting, and I'm actually very proud of our industry, because none other industries adjusted so quickly and so well. If you look at air industry, collapsed, tourism industry collapsed, even hospitals collapsed, and they were supposed not to collapse. They were supposed to work in emergency situations. We are not in emergency. We are, well, in challenging times, and we are doing our job. And I'm very proud of these guys. And why? Because 23rd of March, that's well within the limits of the COVID when it started. These organizations got together immediately. And we, NGOs and flag states, IMO members, immediately started lobbying with these guys you are seeing here in order to prepare things. And within 6 months, we had recommended framework protocols for ensuring safe crew changes for travel, for example. That was all made by those people who got together, worked together, and listen, because that's the most important thing, listen each other and try to adjust. I'm very proud to say Intertanko was one of the very first, and I'm intermanager, by the way, guys, so I'm praising somebody who is not me. Intertanko created a very good crew change management plan. So why to reinvent the wheel? They had it, they shared it with us, with the full industry. Everybody is invited to use it. You don't have to be a member of Intertanko or, as a matter of fact, intermanager. We all share our fruits of our work. And that's the beauty of actually getting together. Intermanager, for our members, we created this system of pooling resources for crew changes, where we are exchanging ideas. We are sending information to each other. We are sharing seats. We are sharing ports, agents, anything you want. You've got a question how to change crew in particular port in China, send us a message. There will be a member who has done it, and he will share that with you. So, to recap, as far as members of Intermanager, crew managers and ship managers are concerned, sharing, collaborating, working together, and forgetting about competition, at least for now, helped us to pull through. And as far as I'm concerned, I've asked recently our members, we are back to the numbers we used to have before COVID as far as crew changes are concerned. Up to the point that people are saying, stop this maritime club, because we are where we used to be. We are at 1.7, maybe 2% of unchanged crew. And that's, well, 3.6 was before all COVID. So we are nearly there. What the point here is, we've got some more challenges in ports and places. And I think Intermanager will be concentrating on those now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kuba. It is a fact that the pandemic has set a number of challenges in all these areas, in crewing, as rightly Kuba pointed out, communications, purchasing, port interfaces, shipyards, charter disputes and claims, and many more, and many technical difficulties, and so on and so forth. I would like to ask all the panelists, what have we learned so far out of this crisis, and how we manage as an industry through this crisis? What have we learned so far, and where could we improve our performance? Okay, so I would like to start with Elvi. Where have we, let's say, not failed, but what have we learned so far, and how could we improve? Elvi.
I think that, as previous speaker said, we learned that we are very fast in adapting. Although 6 months might not seem fast, they are really fast, because we suddenly, everybody started working from home, where we were not organized to be doing that. And still we managed to run our vessels. The markets commercially, they continue changing all the time, and they still continue change. When we had circles of a year, let's say, or whatever, now I think we have new circles every week. The market is continuously changing because of all the restrictions due to COVID. So apart from having to deliver stuff and to continue our shipbuilding, continue buying vessels, and the main issue of crew seafarers, we managed. We didn't succeed totally, but we managed to continue. What we can do better, I think we've learned a few things now, and I think we have to rely to people in other parts of the world. We don't have to be there to do our business. We used to believe that we have to take an aeroplane to go somewhere to solve any situation, if that was a legal situation, if that was a crew matter or a purchasing matter. Somebody from the company had to travel there. Now we learned that we don't. We can trust people at the other side of the world, and they can do their job for us. I think this is the main thing. It's trust. I think we learned that we can trust each other a bit more.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sanil?
Okay. First of all, very quickly, we learned that the ships cannot be run without the crew. And people are talking about automation, people are talking about remote operations. But first, the most important thing is that crew is important. And when we realized that we cannot sign off our crew, immediately we set up systems to take care of crew and also the families. So immediately we had this crisis response center, which were looking after the crew, in-house psychologist, talking to the families and wives, giving them extra salary, giving them, more time to talk to their families. Then virtual training. This was also very new to us. Normally we would fly people to our various offices where one-on-one training was given or in training centers. So we started our virtual training. We did not allow the people to come, and we said, okay, we can do that. So this has also gone into the next level. Then we were able to do repairs, dry dockings, other jobs, which was unheard of, that superintendent has to travel. So this was something new. As she rightly said, we started looking at the local availability, resources available. We hired local people who could be our eyes and ears, and we did successfully a lot of dogging, and we were able to discuss and put down the cost. Then remote surveys. This was also in the pipeline, but actually never happened. But during this pandemic time, the class and flag, they were pioneers, and they actually started supporting us in doing these surveys and giving these extensions. We would send a video clip to them, or they would have some sort of a virtual discussions on board the ship with the chief engineers and others. So these things went off. So there's one aspect of things which were moving way ahead, and these are going to last forever. This is not that tomorrow pandemic is over and this will go away. I think this will be the buildings for the future development. What actually I missed out, and I see still, that the various institutes are, or the stakeholders are still not coming together on various issues. If, for example, a flag gives an extension, or if he gives a paper, because on something, the harbor masters or port state controls, other things, they are not ready to listen to it. So this, I still feel there's a lot of communication gap or mismatch between how flag and class see in the operation of the ships and how the local authorities where our ships are going. They have no regard for whatever piece of paper or extension or exemptions we get from flag or class. There is a mismatch here. So, and also the various issues which are happening between the owner and the charterers, they are not ready to listen, because of course the money is involved. There I feel that there could be much better cooperation between these stakeholders to at least run the ships smoothly. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Sanil. I'd like to hear Theo, because it's not my feeling, but I feel, and the majority of the industry feels, that the flag states have done their best to smooth out the situation. Not necessarily the same with charterers, as you correctly pointed out. I would like to ask Theo, representing a major flag, Theo, what's your views? What have we learned so far? How could we do, let's say, better in the future in terms of cooperation, as probably Sanil pointed out?
I think what the first thing that all of us learned, and this is again something that we're doing today, is to do things remotely and digitally. I think that's the first lesson, and we learned that lesson very quickly. I mean, within weeks, when the whole thing with the pandemic started earlier this year. So this is a great lesson for us. I mean, we realized that we don't need to stop the ships, or we don't need to stop our operations. We don't need to stop communicating or even having digital conferences or trainings on board the ships remotely. So this is that's the first great thing that we learned through the pandemic. The other thing that we learned is that we have huge technological power behind us. And I think many people in this industry, and not only this industry, I think on other businesses too, And I'm talking also about the younger generation, younger than me. They haven't realized the power of technology. And I think this is either we like it or not. I'm a more of a traditional guy. I like physical meetings. I like being close to people. I don't want to have everything on a laptop or a tablet. But this is where the world is going. So we cannot really ignore the new way. We cannot ignore what the new generation wants to have. And all of us have to realize that technology is something that we have to use stronger and closer from now on, even when the whole thing with the pandemic goes away. The third thing, and I was listening to Sanil about the crew and the problem with the changes of seafarers. Outside of the social issue and the problem with their lives, I think what we learned also in this the past 6-7 months is that probably, and I have been hearing this for the last 20 years I've been in this industry, is that we probably need to have to change the public perception about shipping, because I don't think the world realized what the crew does on board the ships. I mean, I'm talking with many friends here in Greece and Greece is a traditional ship owning and seafarers nation. You can imagine other countries that have no relation to shipping. So I was talking with friends here, and they can't even realize what's happening on board the ships with the crew. And they think that the crew has a normal life, and they can go back and forth to their families anytime they want. And they don't think that they're closely affected by this. And they think that they can still travel like everybody else. I mean, we have been seeing tourists traveling the last few months, but still seafarers were facing difficulties. I think that's something that probably our industry has to fix. That's probably something that we have to promote better what we are doing. So we cannot, and we shouldn't accept such kind of attitude from other people or other industries against shipping, because as other speakers said in this panel, shipping is responsible for like 90-something% of the world trade, and without shipping, probably half of the world will be starving right now. And I think seafarers are key workers, as everybody has been saying for the last 6-7 months, and probably the message didn't get across very well to the rest of the world so far.
Thank you, Phil. George, what are your views on this? What have we learned? How can we improve? You have to unmute, George.
Is that okay now? Can you hear me now?
Okay, yeah.
Can you hear? Okay. Sorry about that. No, what I'm saying is that we're all on a learning curve, especially us, because even the meeting we're having now is fairly new to me with these Teams and Zooms and whatever. Working on a computer is obviously a situation which is fairly new, and we need to really have some lateral thinking to adapt to it. So imagine if this is so difficult for us, where we're sitting in our leisure in our own homes or offices. Imagine what it is for a crew member under stress at sea and heavy weather, and with all the other complications and difficulties which she faced at sea. One thing which was just highlighted earlier, which I want to perhaps expand on, not to be confrontational, but just to be factual, the attitude of the charterers. Frankly, at the end of the day, the charter is the end user. He's the one who has to carry the cargoes. He's involved in the whole infrastructure involved in transportation. And quite frankly, I think the fact that they show minimum or nothing at all, no compassion or flexibility or commercial reality in terms of handling the issues of coronavirus by being more adaptable, to be more flexible. And at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, more understanding, because at the end of the day, we can't keep on running our lives around what the contract says and the nuts and bolts of clause 5 and subsection 2. You've got to look at the reality and the fact that we're dealing with human beings. Now, charters, I hear many circumstances where a lot of friends of mine who are involved more heavily than we are, and they're just disconcerted. You talk about the idea of diverting a ship for crew change, and as if it's like, not our problem, your problem. Now, let's face it, at the end of the day, as we probably all know from things we have in the shipping sector, in terms of dry cargo shipping alone, I mean, forget tanker markets, which are literally have been more fluctuating and perhaps given a break to the owner to go and at least compensate for the losses he's had over the years and maybe in some cases made some money. But commercial dry cargo, if you save the fact that you have some bareboat deals or buying and selling of ships where you may make a bit of a money in terms of like the same way as you buy and sell a share, a dry cargo shipping hasn't really made money the last 10 years. And that's a fact which has been substantiated by most of friends of mine who are very heavily involved in dry cargo shipping. Now, if you add this issue we're having now with the virus, and I insist on calling it the Chinese virus because without being too nasty, it did emanate from China. It is from China in the same way as you had the Spanish flu years ago. And the problem we have here is that we do need, and this is something, perhaps something which is more urgent than every other thing which we've discussed during the course of this panel today. It is very urgent that it comes as a priority, and I think to a certain extent, if charters are not going to show any flexibility or the understanding, I think there must be some infrastructure of imposing a setup where they have to literally, in terms of even national security, human lives, or call it an SOS theme, if you want to call it that, because at the end of the day, it is very, very, very serious. Because it's not just a matter of the costing element involved in the owner being, which has to be subjected to for the crew change and the allocation of how he's going to operate the ship. But during this process, the charterer is also, for the cargo which is being transported in the particular ship, he's also responsible indirectly for causing to exist an unsafe ship. He's literally causing danger to the people and the operators and the crew involved on that particular ship. So it is a bit ironical for the charter to look sideways and just to walk away from the situation or act like Pontius Pilatus by washing his hands, by saying, "It's not my problem, this is your problem." I think it's despicable when you find that at the end of the day, we are concerned with the safety of lives at sea. And I think this situation, because it is so important, it's got to be emphasized in a much stronger way in the shipping sector. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, George. Kuba?
Yes, thank you. Obviously, not to try to repeat anything, I would like to stress what LP was saying about the trust. And I'm delighted to see that many ship owners now and ship managers trust their own crew in the office, then they can actually work from home. So I think that's going to be a huge mental change of paradigm. We will be working more towards delivery instead of just being in the office for 8 hours. People are given tasks and those tasks have to be completed. I'm delighted to see that actually, because I think people are far more productive when they work to their own pace. One thing which we haven't mentioned and intermanager members learn big style is looking after crew who is not on board. There is a lot of dramas for people who want to go to sea and can't because the other guys are on board of the ship. They run out of money. They are now madly in need for finance and they would like to go and join. And if as a ship manager or crew manager, you do not work with these people who are not at sea, then you are snookered. And now I would like to give the same speech as George did, not towards the charterers, but toward the owners. Owners couldn't give a monkeys about people who are at sea, at home, because owners only look after those who are hardly look after at sea. But we have to have people waiting to go to sea. So this is the lessons we are learning as well. It's seafarers, not only those who are on board of the vessel. Seafarers are also at home, waiting to relieve those guys, be passionate, be ready to join the vessel and give the 100 or maybe 200%. What we are also learning is that we really need to cooperate. It paid off. Then we had a very good network with people who are, you may call on the other side of the barricade. So we are talking about port state control. We are talking about European Commission, ILO, IMO, WHO. We need to work with these guys. And again, I'm repeating myself now, it really paid off when we had these contacts and we were able to create a very good coronavirus strategy group, which is meeting every week remotely, and we are discussing issues. We are reporting what our problems are, which ports are problematic for us, which embassies are closing because they are afraid of the staff contracting coronavirus in Manila, for example. And we were able immediately react to that, and other embassies from European countries were able to issue visas for Filipinos and so on and so forth. So these things are beautiful things. We learn all of this. And again, I think I agree with Theo here. Then we seem to be getting on with jobs, and the world is dealing with them themselves. And they don't even bother to know that shipping is what makes them tick. It's deeply frustrating for me when I hear Australia, for example, very civilized country, when the federal government says we need to do the crew changes, and then every local government says, yes, but not in my backyard. So that's the problem. And I have to admit that my network does not go all the way to every Australian port. We only reach to the federal government, and they are showing hands up and saying, what can we do when we can? And the same was in Manila, actually, in Philippines, when the federal government was working really hard, but then provinces were not taking on board what needs to be done. So a lot of positives, I would say, and I always see the glass half full, and I would like to continue on that. And especially coming back now, circling back to trust, I am thinking maybe shipping industry can be the first industry which start, for example, employing disabled people. Once we are working from home, why not to include more ladies? Why not to include more disabled people? Why not to give a chance to those who have been excluded? Now we've got them. They are available. We can prove. Everybody can have a laptop and work from home. So that's from me. Thank you.
It's a nice comment, Kuba. I think that the same challenge applies for all the industries, not only shipping, but your point is valid. Now, given the fact that we have discussed a lot about crew changes, I would like to ask you, I would like to take your crystal ball now, and I would like to make some sort of guess, let's say. So I would like to ask, how many months, how many years do you think it will take for the crisis to resolve? And my question is not about the crisis. I would like to ask you, how long do you think it will take to resolve the crew changes problem? The crew changes is a huge problem for shipping for the time being. It will not be resolved unless we resolve the COVID crisis in general. So I would like to ask each one of you to take your crystal ball and give me your feedback. How long do you think it will take to resolve let's say, to have this crew change crisis to be resolved, let's say, to a major extent? LP, you have to guess.
Sorry, I have to guess. Okay. It's $1 million question, and whoever wins will get it after a couple of years' time. Okay. So really, I don't know. I think we need to have the vaccine out, or at least the medicine. I'm not sure if this will happen this year or the next year. I hope it will happen very soon. If my hopes are of any help, I wish it can happen by January and we are all over it and we can meet in person next time very soon. But maybe it will take a year or a year and a half. But I believe that if we make, as Kuba said, if we make people aware of the situation of the crew and how important they are for all the industry and for everybody, and we continue to make collaborations and raise awareness for the matter, then the crew problem will be issued sooner. We don't have to wait for the COVID to pass to solve the crew issue. It will be a disaster. It will be a disaster for all those people waiting at home or being on board, and for the safety of the vessel, of course.
Theo, what do you think?
First of all, I would agree with LP. I mean, Apostola, you ask right now for us to bet on something, not to express any opinion. So I think we should have a pre-committed prize for the winner, okay? Because this is a betting. I mean, this is nothing else. So I can't really say. I have no idea, okay? So I will not give any months or years or whatever. The only thing I want to say, and I don't want to repeat myself, is that with or without it, we have to continue live our lives, first of all, our personal lives, and secondly, we should do the utmost to make sure that the shipping business is moving seamlessly without any problems or disruptions. We have the power, we have the tools. We're going to have problems, absolutely, but we should never give up and go on and do what we're doing for years.
Okay. Sanil, what do you think?
Yeah, first, I fully agree with what Captain Kuba said, to look after the crew and their families. And luckily, we had taken these initiatives last year, giving them medical insurance, bringing the families together. So at least at the time when their husbands are out, the families are not creating a panic or putting pressure, because as you must have seen, these days there have been so many cases where the crew on board the ship is very depressed, and that depression can even take to extreme chances where they jump overboard or commit suicide. So that is one part we had initiated and is working. But as I personally feel that this will not be the silver bullet. We're waiting for vaccine to solve our problem. I think it will take some more time. Or suddenly within, like SARS I saw in Hong Kong, same thing, another 1 or 2 years, it just dies down. So till then something happens, we need to create these bubbles. And this is so important, where the ships can do crew changes in places like Singapore, Hong Kong, Philippines, Australia, certain places in India, and also in Europe. These bubbles need to be created where the crew can be transferred to these hostels so that the local people feel safe. And from there, they can have various flights to take in and out. And until then, it is not created, there'll be a chaos. And many countries become panic and they take the same action of clamping down whenever the cases goes up. So we see here in Cyprus, used to be very normal till yesterday, and suddenly the cases have gone from 50 to 200. Now there is a panic and they want to close down everything. So this will continue, till the time. So I feel instead of just waiting for to find a vaccine, I should suggest that people should work together to find ways to do the crew change in a better way. Same like how we used to do it for capes and big tankers, there was these ships were not coming to the ports. We found a way to do the crew change. Something like that we may have to do in coming future.
Okay, thank you. And actually the bubble thing you mentioned, have a nice example with in US with the NBA, when they decided to conclude the whole competition with a bubble, and they created a bubble for 3 months, 4 months, something like that. And it was a successful bubble. And we need to see these bubbles, as you correctly pointed out, in other places of the world for crew changes. Absolutely. George.
Yes, Apostle. First of all, I'd like to take the opportunity of thanking Captain Captain Kuba Szymanski. You pinpointed and highlighted an area which I was relatively perhaps weak on, or at least misinformed or uninformed. I mean, the aspect of the consequences this is having not only the crew members at sea, but on the ones who are literally seeking jobs at home and going through desperate financial positions in their own homes, want to do a day's work and not be able to work. So I must first of all thank Captain Kuba for highlighting something which in fact I wasn't aware of. So thank you. I always say these conferences always serve two purposes. Number one, we have the interrelation in terms of working and saying own experiences. But as far as I'm concerned, it's also a learning curve. We learn a lot from participation in conferences. So I'd like to thank you and thank Apostos for inviting us. Back to what you were mentioning earlier. My issue is I personally think it's going to take longer rather than sooner, which I'm thinking about if you want to extrapolate maybe a year and a half or so. The reason why I take that view is the following two reasons. Number one, the system, if you draw a parallel between somebody who's ill who's gone to hospital and he's gone to hospital from being, from just basic ward and then he goes into intensive care. I think our system overall worldwide is going to have some parallel is the hospitalization, the system, the society is going to go into intensive care. Now, as you're all aware, that once one goes into intensive care, there's a certain period of time of readjustment which you will need when you come out of intensive care. So I don't particularly think that once we're going to have a viable vaccination, if that's going to be the case, of just pressing a button and it's all a bed of roses and we're back to normal. I think normality will also have to need an adjustment period of actually getting back to normality. That's the first issue. The second thing I'm worried about, and I shouldn't be saying this, but I will, it's a matter of also geopolitics and commercial interests. You probably all read The Economist magazine. I was very perturbed to see about a couple of months ago, as you probably know, The Economist does not write or doesn't write the name of the guys who write the articles because they're worried about repercussions, legal consequences, etc. And I saw a very glamorous article where they invited as a guest Bill Gates. Now, I'm not going to have it in for Bill Gates right now because this is off the, a different topic. But what is worrying me about this scenario is I find that if you hear what we or read, or at least interpret what we read, there's a certain commercial agenda taking place, which may be over and above the aspects which we're concerned about as to whether doctors, the medical field, will actually try and find a virus or put the virus into motion so we can all literally recover from this horrific disaster. But on the other hand, I think there's a commercial interest which may be dictating the time frame in a stronger way than what doctors are doing in terms of trying to find a vaccine. There seems to be a hidden commercial agenda. I wouldn't go to the extent I will have to mention anyway that I also take the view that the virus which was created in China, I wouldn't be at all surprised if the Chinese have a vaccination ready in their back pocket. So this aspect, I didn't want to mention the politics, but on the other hand, it does come into the equation. And what really triggered off this mechanism, my way of thinking, is when you hear about Bill Gates, you hear about things going on which sound to be very mysterious in terms of not placing so much emphasis on where we're going to have the doctors find a vaccine, but in terms of a lot of money issues involved. And we are talking about $1 trillion business here, which may take an impact and have as a consequence when we're going to have the finalization or when we're going to have the termination of this big crisis. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, George. Kuba?
Yes, so I'm a very simple sailor. And therefore, I tried as a ship manager as well, I'm trying to concentrate on something I can influence and I can change. And I like my fellow ship managers. We were presented with an issue, challenge, problem on the 27th of March when countries started locking down. And we saw our shipping KPI, one of the shipping KPIs, crew not relieved on time, jumping from 3.6% to 40, 50, 60, 67% of our crew at the top were not relieved on time. And then we started doing something which we could have done. We didn't complain about others. Obviously, we always do, we are human beings. But then we realized that complaining doesn't help. It does not reduce the figure. So we have to do something. So we realized that there is no point doing any planning crew changes in Singapore for many, many months, because Singapore was actually, telling us one thing and then doing another thing. Same was Hong Kong. So we found those bubbles Sanil is talking about. We cooperated with others, and we started seeing results of our own work. Up to the point, as I mentioned right at the very beginning, that members of ship managers, members of Intermanager are now reporting that they are back to 3.6% of not relieved crew, which is state situation before COVID struck. And that's not saying then we are relieved now, then we are relaxed now. That is done because of a very, very, very hard work of people who know where to make crew changes, how to make crew changes. Sometimes we have to relieve people earlier than they contract, knowing that if we don't do that now, they will be stuck for 2-3 months. We know that there is no point sending crew already at the end of the contract to Australia because they will not be relieved in Australia. So we do crew changes in Manila, for example. Look how many ships are actually calling at Manila now. Never heard of it before. We would be flying Filipinos to Manila. Now we are diverting ships to Manila to do that. That's the lesson we learn. So two thoughts, or two schools of thoughts. Yeah, either you complain about others and wait for them to do something for you, or you forget about them, you do it for yourself, you find solutions, you find allies, and you achieve what you are paid basically to do. So Apple, I think I can say that we are back to normal as far as crew changes are concerned, not to say that we are working the same amount of time. So there was a discussion among ship managers. Kuba, you are our Secretary General, go to owners and tell them to pay us twice as much now for our management efforts, because in order to achieve the same result as we did before, we have to put 2 times more, if not 3, effort. The owners were like charterers, forget it. I'm paying you to do the job, do it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kuba. Now, I would like to ask, to change a little bit what we're discussing here. I would like to ask, what do you think are the short and long-term impacts of this corona crisis, short and long-term, specifically with respect to remote work, attraction of crewing, attraction and retention of crewing, of people to work on board ships, decarbonization and digitization? What are your views? What are the short-term and long-term impacts of this corona crisis in shipping? You can let's say have a response in any of these or in any other aspect if you wish. I would just like to ask your views on what you can think are these short-term and long-term impacts. So Elvi, sorry.
On technology and digitalization, I think we made a great improvement. First of all, we were very lucky that this thing happened now and not 5 years ago, because with the technology that was out there, we were all able to continue our work, not the perfect way, but continue our work. And as Stealth said, the young people are it is more easy for them to go ahead and work in new ways. They don't need to be in the office. They don't need to be, it's even pleasant for them. And as Kuba said, we can be a bit more inclusive from now on, because we can include everybody. We can include people that could not work because they were living in remote places. We can include women that could not work because of their house status, disabled people. And it doesn't matter if we are in Piraeus or we are in India or wherever we are, but given the right task, we can do it. But companies have to be set out that way. Decarbonization, I think, because of the economic crisis, this impact, this COVID has given to the world, unfortunately, we don't make as much money as we used to. Everybody, not only shipping, everybody around us, the industries, the factories, everything. So they're not so much money now and willingness maybe to put into the decarbonization efforts. But I'm sure that when this passes and we forget about these difficult times, we will focus again on the issue of decarbonization, because it is for the best of all of us. I have to comment only on these two.
Okay, Theo? Theo, you have to unmute. Theo?
Okay, I lost you for a minute. I couldn't hear you for a while. Okay. So I would like to touch upon 2 issues, crew and digitalization. I mean, I don't want to allocate enough time right now on decarbonization, because this is an ongoing issue, and I think it's I don't think it's, at least my personal opinion, related so much with COVID and what we're discussing today. So crewing, on the short term, it is difficult. It's going to be difficult for some time until governments realize that the threat is away, the threat in under quotation marks, and until governments and countries live a normal life again. So I think that's going to be difficult. It's not going to be impossible. We've seen a number of changes in the last few months. The routine is more or less difficult, in a difficult way, though it's coming back, but it's going to be challenging for the upcoming months. On the long run, I think probably the planning agents and the managers will be more efficient when they're doing crew changes. I think some of the protocols, some of the procedures will stay for a long time, even if we find the vaccine or if there is any kind of indication that will make the COVID-19 not a threat anymore. I think all the managers will be more, in a way, careful from now on, and they will adopt procedures and protocols that will stay for a long time, on a long run. When it comes to digitalization, what I would like to share is that we have seen as a flag state, I will speak in terms of our inspections program, we've done more than 700 remote inspections. I can't say that it is perfect, okay? It can't be perfect, and the physical presence on board the ship can never be replaced. But what I can say is that it gave us a good tool to have an additional eye on the ship, and that goes also for the owners and managers. That goes also with the class societies. That goes also with the clubs or any third party that has a kind of interest on the ship. And I think this is a great power, a great tool in our hands, because moving forward, when we will go back to the normal scheme of surveys and inspections with physical presence, I think the remote surveys, the remote inspections will be an additional tool in our hands, so we can have a better eye on the ship. So companies, they don't need to send superintendents on every other port to make sure things are okay, because they can have their superintendents check the ship when the ship is en route to a port or wherever is the ship on a remote port. Same with us for class societies. When we need to approve short-term certificates or do occasional surveys, especially on remote areas and on minor items, we can use the technology. So I think that all these developments because of COVID are here to stay. Again, physical presence and personal inspection or survey can never be replaced. And I mean, at least for the next 10, 15 years, I don't know what's going to happen in 25 or 30 years from now, but at least for the short-term future, it's not going to be replaced. But all these tools are giving us another power in our hands. We should use them diligently and make sure that we improve the quality by using the technology.
Thank you, Theo. Sanil?
Okay. In short term, actually, one aspect we have not touched is we have talked quite a lot about the crew fatigue and tiredness. There is one aspect which, as managers, technical managers, we are always worried, especially now, is operation of our ships in a safe way. We actually feel that there could be more incident and accidents with navigation or in maintenance of machinery, because these things are becoming quite a lot overlooked, because we had this new fuel which we were using from 1st January. And this has resulted in breakdowns, especially in the engines and generators. And because of providing the spare parts at the right time and right places, that has also caused a bottleneck. So I personally see that there could be more incidents and accidents. Because these ships are being built all over the world by various people, so there is no guarantee that they are in good shape. But taking it forward, I feel that digitization will be there, and also the machinery and equipment which are going to be installed on the ships, which will be more reliable. And it will be in a way where it will become easier for the future crews to do the maintenance. It will not be left as what we were doing previously, and even now that so much of maintenance work is being done by the ship staff. That will reduce in coming to future. That's my call on that.
Okay, George?
Yes, Abu Salih. Well, first of all, I'd like to endorse what Theo mentioned earlier, and also Elby. I think she actually hit the nail on the head in a rather eloquent way and very factual. So I'd like to thank you for your comments, because that's what I would really endorse. The only thing I'd like to add is, first of all, the decarbonisation issue. It is an issue, but I think at this stage, and for the purpose of this dialogue and this conference, this venue, I think that will literally, in my personal view, have to go on what the English say, on the back burner. I don't think it's something which is going to come to our imminent attention right now, because we have other priorities. The digitalization, as LB very well mentioned, had this crisis happened 5-10 years ago, I think it would have been an absolute disaster, which I don't think any of us would have been in a position to handle. All I can say in my circumstances, especially today, is because I'm at least blessed and very grateful that I've got 6 children. It's through my children that I've found a way of re-educating myself or readapting to the changes. And literally, even though I was a guy who 15, 20 years ago would use a fountain pen with an ink, by the way, just traditional ink, now we're going to the idea of thinking about having to rethink things through computers, through this, even this venue we're having now, which I would have thought that a couple of years ago it would not have been possible. Well, in fact, I don't know whether anybody would be enthusiastic or daring enough to come to the table and participate, yet we're all doing this. So I'd like to say that digitalization is definitely, and in whatever way it will progress in the near future, will definitely be helpful and will be literally the decisive factor as to how we're going to be able to handle the situation in the future. At the end of the day, without wanting to sound too romantic, I think it's all the duty of all of us, especially for the because we literally we have had a certain amount of years of experience, and I think we owe it to the younger generation, which I think is the most important component of society, for us to be compassionate and most of all be inspiring. We've got to be able to inspire the future generation as to how they're going to handle these problems, because right now it's a ball in our hands, which it's a crystal ball. We don't really know which way this is going to go. And last but not least, I think Darwin's theory comes into the equation, who mentioned, as you know, years ago, that at the end of the day, the one who's going to survive will not be the strongest or the most intelligent, but the one who's going to be more adaptable to changes. And I think, ladies and gentlemen, that factor, or that saying, that what he mentioned couldn't have been more relevant and more appropriate than it is in the circumstance we all live in today. We're in Greece, we're always a bit more romantic about everything. We've had 6,000-7,000 years of history. We survived the ups and downs, the wars, the upheavals, disasters. And I think take a leaf out of our book for the world at large. We will survive. We'll get through all this. But we may have to, in the meantime, get ready for a bit of more difficulty and maybe perhaps to build up some more scar tissue around the corner. I don't think there's going to be a bed of roses. I think right now we're running a marathon, not a sprint. Thank you.
Okay, Kuba?
Yeah, thank you. I think ship managers are saying keep calm and keep managing, and that's what we do. And all different challenges are being thrown at us, and we carry on with doing that. Again, it shows, as George very rightly says, adaptation is needed. And some people were better prepared for this adaptation and some were less. And those who were less are speeding up this process, otherwise they'll be out. So talking about all sorts of issues we've got a part of crew changes, we had to adapt completely to the new situation. So if as a ship manager you had a good network of your local representatives, people you could trust, then you basically let them do the job. So we see we've got associate members in our organization, and those associate members are now performing some duties for the full members, supervision, execution of some of the tasks and projects, project management, and so on and so forth. Plus technology helps as well. So I think, as you can hear, I'm not sounding alarmistic. Yes, it doubled our job scope, it doubled efforts and everything, but we did not throw a towel yet. We are there, we are fighting, we are struggling sometimes, but we are achieving that, we are delivering. And I think that's the most important thing. And that's what, in the end of the day, customer expects from us. And our customers are ship managers on one hand, and on the other hand, ladies and gentlemen, our customer is a seafarer, because ship managers and crew managers have to please both seafarers who they place on board of the ships and owners who are using our services. And that's what we are being scrutinized on. This is how well we earn our money. And if we don't, then somebody complains. And as you know, owners are very quick to criticize. So are the seafarers. They are not voiceless nowadays. They talk to each other. They've got social media. They share their views. And ship managers, crew managers are under enormous pressure. But on the other hand, not everybody can and should be a crew manager and ship manager. Therefore, the fittest will survive. Well, I don't know. I'm not necessarily a huge fan of Darwin in this respect, but, well, I will not be, well, reality check is reality check. That's what it is. So thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you all. Now, we have to conclude the panel. I would just like to give out the last question, because we will be out of time. I have a couple of minutes. I would like to ask you to give me some feedback within, let's say, 30 seconds, just a brief one. What do you think would be the key priorities, just some buzzwords? What would be the key priorities for our industry moving forward within the next 5 years as we recover from this Corona crisis? Key priorities, buzzwords, 30 seconds. LP.
Okay, environmental challenges and new rules and regulations, and everything else has to adapt around and making money, of course, to survive.
Absolutely, absolutely. Theo.
I think the major word, I mean, I wrote it down, a number of things we said: governments, remote charterers, managers, crew, everything, local authorities. I think the main word that we need to consider from now on is integration, what I think we're sometimes miss. And I don't mean integration when it comes only to the shipping industry, integration when it comes to the rest of the world.
Okay. Sanil?
For me, one is what we talk: crew, training, mental health, reliability of equipment on board the vessels, and disruptions due to cyber attack and piracy, which we did not touch. So these three things are very important for sustainable.
Okay. George?
Thank you. Perhaps, again, not going down the straight line, but maybe going off the side road. I believe that the most important aspect is to be compassionate, to remind ourselves that we're human beings, because with all this way we're working every day, machines, gadgets, teams and meetings, whatever, through electronics and, as we said, digitalization, we've got to remind ourselves that we're human beings. We have to remind ourselves that we have to maintain our emotions. And we also have to remind ourselves that we have an obligation towards the next generation, especially for the psychological impacts which this is causing. And this is going a bit further afield now, not only in terms of shipping, but in terms of education standards, children participating in universities, schooling. So effectively, we have, besides this being confined to the shipping sector, which we're involved with, that does not necessarily mean that being in shipping business, that we should lose the big picture. And the big picture is the next generation. And as we know, a country's biggest strength is its next generation. So I'd place more emphasis on compassion, feelings, and reminding ourselves that we're human beings, ordinary persons, which we should never divorce the element of simplicity. Just be simple and human. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Kuba?
Well, George almost stole my thunder here, But I will extend what George is saying, and I would say seafarers are human beings. And I'll finish with that. We need to remember that. We've got our ambitions, we've got everything. So do we, seafarers. So let's work for them. This is our obligation, this is our responsibility as ship managers, cargo managers, ship owners, and whatever. We've got responsibility. Seafarers and their families. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all very much. I would like to thank all our viewers. Stay with us for our next panel on crew welfare. So thank you very much. And for those of you who missed, let's say, the full session, it will be available online at the end of the streaming. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Apostle.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having us. Thanks, everybody. Great team. Thanks. Bye-bye.